Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We'd greatly appreciate it. We have Bea Sanford on the podcast with us. She's an IFBB bikini pro. She's also a certified personal trainer as well as a bodybuilding and posing coach. She's coming to us all the way from the great state of Michigan, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Bea, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I'm
A-
excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory first of what really inspired and motivated you to make that change and adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I at a young age I was always active. My father was a part of PAL, so Police Athletic League. So we'll do everything: bowling, track, and baseball, whatever. So I was a little bit of a tomboy back then. For a few years, it switched, and then it was pom pom, and dance. So always active. But it wasn't until when it comes to weightlifting and then getting into becoming a personal trainer, that didn't happen until I think after my college years, like that last year, and you're kind of going, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? I had an office job, it was good and everything, but then I said, okay, free time. Where do I want to go with this? And I was always into making sure I was healthy or being active in some kind of way. So I was in and out of the gym here and there. But then I started, Lifetime Fitness. 2 days in a row, I had, what is it? Two different, um, what do you call it? Goodness, personal trainers. Yeah, of course. I had two different personal trainers come up to me. One being like the top of their group managers, saying, "Are you a personal trainer?" Because I was always, I had that fit body or whatever. And I'm just looking like, no, I'm not. So I thought about it, just put a little light bulb in my head. Like, maybe I should look into this because, looking at myself or thinking about myself down the line, the reason why I was truly into fitness was to say, what would my older self want me to do today so that I can still be healthy and fit and walking around 20, 30, 40 years later? So instead of just, in and out of the gym, staying a little bit active, I decided to move forward and, take that next step, go a different level and become a personal trainer. While I was in classes, I happened to mention that I was doing this and they talked about weightlifting, like for competing, and I was like, I had no idea what the heck that was. Looked into it. They connected me with someone who had done it in the past. She told me, "Oh, you're a great fit for bikini." Said, "You know what? Being a personal trainer, this could be something that some of my clients might want to get into. Then it'll help me as I train my own body understand how that goes." So this was in 2015, I believe it was. Yeah, 2000 in 2014, 2015. I started training for a competition. I found a natural organization. It was small. I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Uh, didn't know how I would place. I ended up winning my division, winning the show. They were giving out pro cards, which I was still new to, and I got one. So
So
after
you're one of
that,
those lucky people that got their pro card at their first show?
yeah, well, see, at a natural organization, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to say yes because if we continue to talk, yes. When it came to NPC, the same thing happened. But yes, yes. And so after that, the bug was there.
Mhm,
I was bit.
mhm.
So I said, I'm gonna keep going with this. I love this, and so I did a few more shows later on in 2015, 16. And I don't know if I'm going, too much in
Oh,
depth
no,
into like,
please,
okay.
please.
But so of course that was one side of it. 2015, 2016, I did some shows here and there. Nationally qualified, for NPC. I switched over to NPC. Um, my first show, nationally qualified, but I didn't do anything with it. I was kind of scared because it was a bigger realm of individuals that you have to go against. And so I took off 2017, stayed in the gym constantly. Like I loved that lifestyle. The healthy eating, the lifting, the strengthening of my body, just seeing where I could push myself. And then I decided I wanted to go ahead and try and go for this pro card for NPC. And I looked for a team because I didn't know how I wanted to do it by myself this time. And as you can see, Boss Bodies, that's our team. And so I'm with them not only as a athlete, but as a coach. But went on ahead, started late 2017 to prep. I will say I don't know why every prep I do starts off during the holidays. Oh God, it's not the greatest.
You
I
just
will say
like
that
torturing
much.
yourself, I guess?
I don't know. It was every time. Late 2014 going into 15, late 2017 going into 18, and did the same thing this year. But I did that, connected with my team. Um, I think it was the second national show that year in Charleston. It was the first or second one. And yes, got my pro card for NPC and became IFBB pro in less than a year. So
That is, yeah, that is definitely one of the lucky stories that we like, that I love to have, because I mean, I've had so many other people too where they're just like, yeah, I've waited like 20 years to finally get my pro card, and then we have people like you come on and they're just like, yep, less than a year, got my pro card. So yeah, it works either ways, which is why I love having people share their stories, because everyone has their own different journey to getting that pro card or just to competing. But I always love to ask, because it's one of those things that I think a lot of people just don't realize, is that if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes
yeah,
down to their diet, their nutrition. I mean, even as minuscule as like how many reps they do or what exercise they do, so many different things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that hard for you when you were getting started to find out, what worked best for you specifically? Because I always like to say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, like, what did you train for this body part? This body part looks amazing. What works best for you to get that result might not work as good for them. I'd say more like 99% of the time, it's not going to work as good for them.
that is true. And I will say, I am so sorry for those out there who might be like, oh, okay, she's going to get something so specific, it's going to work. I ended up tripping upon what worked for me, especially for the first show. So I did get some info from, some trainers who were around, and I mistook some of the information they gave me, and it ended up working instead of backfiring. After my whole prep of like, I think it was 2.5 months, in the beginning they told me to like, I was supposed to go heavy. The a bikini is one from the back, so build the glutes. And so they said, okay, so you can go on the Smith machine and do do 45s on each side, and then do 24 sets of I think, gosh, if I can remember, like 30 to 40 reps.
Wow.
I was only supposed to do that for 2 weeks. I didn't know until like almost at the end of my prep when I told them I was still doing it every day I had leg day. They were like, no, you weren't supposed to. But it ended up working for me. And it might work for someone else too. But that's what happened. And I was able to build the muscle that I needed to um, moving forward. Then I will say, I will go back because I know you were talking about just the journeys for different people, and how long it may have taken to build or get a pro card or whatnot. I will say that that year off was great for me. And I do suggest it for a lot of people instead of continuing to go back to back to back to back, because that's a lot of low calorie, low calorie, low calorie type of preps. You want to give yourself that time to grow, so you need to eat. You need to eat so you can build, and then you chisel away. So that was the other thing. After that first, year, I was able to do. So I would say that's what worked for me, giving my body that time to rest, and not really focus on a true you know structured meal plan. I had my options here and there. I would play around with certain things and my numbers, but yeah, you want to give yourself that time to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I always just love to say though, just with the rest part too, just because when you are building your muscle, the rest is the most important part in that. I mean, you're tearing down your muscle when you're working out. The rest is where you're going to gain all of that muscle and
Yes.
all that recovery. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. But one of the questions that I love to ask, because everyone's genetics are differently, everyone has different bodies, so it makes for very interesting answers. everyone always has that one body part when they get started that really, really takes off that they don't need to train as much. And then everyone always has that one body part that lags behind that they basically, have to train to overdrive to get to catch up with everything else. I'll give my examples first. So my back, I mean, I'm lucky. I had a job where, I was loading cars or loading trucks for basically like 3 years. So I mean, I have a super, I mean, I can train back once a month now, basically, and it still looks like a bodybuilder's back. That's the only thing that for me that looks like I compete really is my back. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs are just, absolute dog crap. Where I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to get them to look any semblance like I work out. And I was a pitcher too, so I had that pitcher's body where you were just long and lengthy and
Yeah.
not as muscular. So that was my struggle. But what were those areas for you when you were getting started?
Oh gosh. Okay, so the areas that I I would say my strong suit would be my legs, glutes, whole thing. I mean, just being a dancer
Yep.
and in that area, you kind of already had uh, that muscle built there. It was more so upper body, and I'm working on it now so that I can get some symmetry. But shoulders and back. So I'm trying to widen this out right about now, and I'm almost like every day after every workout hitting them.
Yeah.
So
Sure, yeah, I can say shoulders by far is one of the biggest things that we hear, especially for women. I mean, yeah, it's just I just love asking that question because it just shows, how unique everyone's body is. But also, like I was telling you before, one of the biggest stereotypes that I love to bust on the show. I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there's still just so many women still nowadays, even in this day and age, that have that fear where if they touch one weight and they walk into a gym, they do one curl or they do one, bench press or one dip or whatever they do, and they just expect that they'll look in the mirror and all of a sudden, they've hulked out and they look like, Dwayne the Rock Johnson overnight. And like I was telling you before, that ever happens, sign me up that same night, use my entire life savings. They'd become the first ever trillionaire. Everyone would want to work with them. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, like I said, I know you probably hear that all the time. What do you like to respond to that by?
I never had it because I didn't get that talk, to make myself feel like, oh, well, maybe that will happen. But I did hear it, as I was going into my, personal training track, hearing it from other women. Well, I like to look, well, not maybe not quite like you, but like almost there. But I don't want to get big, and it's like, no, that's not gonna happen unless
Yep.
there's enhancers in there.
Mm-hmm.
But for women, it's not going to be the case. And I like to tell them honestly, the muscle that you do gain equals a higher metabolism, so you can get rid of the fat. So when they hear that, then it's kind of like all right. But for me, no, there was never a fear of getting bigger. But that's my biggest thing. That's my biggest line that I like to tell women. It's like if you feel like that metabolism is low, trust me, the muscle is good for you. It will kick it into high gear.
Keep preaching that because honestly, like I said, the one struggle that I have, like I was telling you before, is that I put on, like 10 to 15 pounds of weight every winter just in order to be able to survive. Because if I'm lean, I'm going to become a human popsicle walking outside. But because I have that such big working out background, I still have to work out during the winter. I basically have to spend, like $30 a day just going to like Five Guys and eating like two hamburgers and like milkshakes just to be able to put on weight because I'll just turn that. And plus at my job too, I mean, I'm walking constantly, so I walk like 15, 20 miles a day plus the working out. So I mean, that's what makes leg days, a living hell for me because try walking all that, after you've done a proper leg day. So but yeah, it's really just one of those things where you really just have to pig out absolutely in order to gain any amount of weight. So yeah, the metabolism, yeah, that's one of the things I tell people too. It's like, don't you want to be able to eat more and eat what you like and still not be able to put
Thank
on some weight?
you.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. But for me, honestly, well, especially for women, I feel the biggest thing that is the most motivation and really just impacts them more than men, I think, in my general opinion, is the confidence boost that it gives you. I mean,
Yes.
we see so many of these guys who, they walk in the gym, they act like they own the place, and that's just, that's just how some guys are. But for women especially, I mean, that confidence boost, and I always say that confidence is one of those intangible things that's not that you can just take from the gym and add it to every aspect of your life. A lot of things with working out, just stick with you in the gym, but that confidence boost can impact everything else in your life. Could you kind of go over how that confidence boost impacted you specifically? Because I mean, for so many people, like we've had so many stories of people who, I mean, they just get inspired to do more things just for that overall confidence boost. What has that been like for you?
Well, I would say it's life changing. Because like I said in the beginning, for me getting into fitness, it was like, okay, how far can I push my body? because it starts in the mind. So if I realize that, okay, in the gym, I'm able to push my body, past these limits, then there are other areas in my life where I can use that same mindset to succeed. And that's what I've been able to do, which is it's satisfying. I guess that's the word. It's been satisfying. Um, and you start one day at a time. And that's with anything. And so being able to understand that, okay, I've created a habit and a lifestyle for the gym. Okay, so I might want to wake up an hour or two earlier just to, start my day and get more things done. Let that be a goal too. Now let's go with that. Once you realize that you're able to do, or once I was, able to understand that I've changed the way my body looks in the gym, it's like, okay, so let's just take that type of thinking and that mindset and let's alter the ways other parts of my life is so that I can create what I want on a daily basis.
100%. And I say, especially with these people who don't realize, the dedication that goes into being a bodybuilder. I mean,
Mm,
it's one of those things where I also have a lot of veterans that come on the podcast too, and I like to talk to them about that. And when you go through experiences like that, even just getting ready for a show or just, doing anything, I mean, it really just adds so much perspective where you're like, okay, if I can get through that, I can get through anything else in my life. So
yeah.
that's one of those things that I love to stress as well. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize too that I love to just bring up, because so many people don't realize that just to be able to get into shape to go into a prep takes so much hard work and dedication. And it's just, not that many people are going to be able to get into it. But going into a prep, that is notching things up to a whole different level when it comes to, I mean, your diet, your nutrition. I mean, you got to eat the right amount of food at the right amount of time. Usually it's a lot of time eating, which a lot of people don't understand. You can't miss any of your workouts. I mean, everything basically has to be perfect. You have to, you're basically like a scientist and everything has to be correct, like all of your calculations and everything. Was that just a struggle, or was that just a huge mind opening experience for you where you're just like, oh my God, this is something that I never imagined it to be? And how did you deal with that going into your first prep?
Okay, so first prep, I will say was probably the easiest because I was kind of blind going in. You know, uh, we set macros. I said, okay, I'm just gonna follow this. Followed it, until the end. You cut down. I cut down maybe my last month, so it was a hard cut, and okay, it worked. But every prep is different. This last prep for me, um, again, going through the holidays and just different variables that go into it. My first prep, I really wasn't around my family when it came to that. And so the cookies and the cakes and all the good stuff, and the fast food and stuff. I really wasn't around that, so it was easier than it is now. That we're around a little bit more, and you're seeing all that, and you're going, well, I can't have this right now, and the level has to be much higher. Motivation, dedication had to be much higher for me, and blinders, just here. So I would say more so this last prep was one of my hardest, but I I was able to just overcome it. Like I said, just starting here and knowing that I had a goal in mind. And I don't know if we'll talk about that, but I did meet that goal. So I'm happy about that. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
and like you were talking about before, I mean, the mental game, yeah, it is so huge because I have so many people that come on that were just talking about when they were getting started, like they just wanted to look good, where they didn't
Mhm.
realize that you have to have that mental adjustment as well as the physical adjustment. Because I've had some of the most in shape people on the planet on, and they say, you know what, yeah, I have an eight pack, or yeah, I have like these great big muscles. I still don't feel good about myself because I wasn't able to do that mental aspect as well as the physical aspect. So that's what I always say to people. It's like you got to be able to mentally change as well as the physical change too, because otherwise you're not going to be happy, and that's and
Yeah.
then and then that's then you're just basically just doing it just to look good. And I mean, now granted, every guy in their 20s in college basically tries to do that, but you so that's that.
I feel like you have to have a why, and I know I had to repeatedly remind myself of my why. And like I said, it was twofold for me. This last prep, I was going into the muscle contest show in Las Vegas, and I wanted top call outs. My first two pro shows, that wasn't the case, and I wanted top calls. I want to go to the Olympia this year, so that was my goal, and I reached it. So, and I had to make sure, again, no cookies, no cakes, no, okay, let's focus. I can get that at some point in time. Let's just focus on the prep. And then there were sometimes it felt like I was going through the motions. And again, I had to remind myself, not just go through the motions, act like this is the very last workout you would ever have before you get back up on that stage. And so I would have to press through. And then, like I said, twofold, um, that was one part of it, just being on that stage and getting top calls. But the other part of it was and is going to consistently be my biggest why. Again, like I said earlier, 50 years old, 60 years old. What do I want to be like? How do I want to feel? I have to do that now, prepare now, have those habits now, so that I can be where I want to be in 20, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. And now I always love to ask, what was your friends and family's reaction when you decided to, make this change? Because we hear so many, and like you said, if you're on prep during the holidays, no matter what, your parents or your friends or family are gonna be like, "Why aren't you eating these cookies? Why aren't you eating these cakes?" It's like, just have one little bite. It's not gonna hurt you. Like, I can guarantee, even with me, when I didn't even compete, but just getting into a healthy lifestyle where I was like, "Oh, I can't really eat that much," and people be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You think you're better than us or whatever? Like not eating our food or whatever?" And then, I mean, the last couple of years, like I have started putting on weight, during the holidays, so it's fine. But how was that a struggle for you at all? And how did your overall like friends and family react? I mean, I know you said you had a dad that was really, into, getting in shape and really into sports. So was that more of a positive impact for you?
It was honestly, I don't think they knew too much about the industry, just like myself, just going into it. Um, when I put on the bikini for the first time, like in the house, because I saw the changes in my body, I was like, oh, I thought my mom would react a different way, but she, oh, right on. Oh, you look good. And that's okay. They all came to my first show. And yeah, I guess, I think because they understood what it was all about, um, they embraced it. They embraced it. But when it does come to the food, I will say, it has taken a little bit when it comes to the food and the choices and asking, "Oh, we're going to this restaurant. Did you want to go?" And it's like, I'm on prep. Don't ask me that. So this year it seems like it's like starting to settle in, and they'll understand and they won't ask, or they'll remind me, of some things that I need. So it's gotten better
Yeah, I
on that.
mean, one of the stories that we hear all the time is a lot of dads just say like, "I'm sorry, I know I support you, but I just can't see you up there on that bikini during the competition." So I was like, "I won't go to the show, but just tell me how it goes." So yeah, I totally. I mean, we hear that story all the time, so that's why I love to ask with friends and family. So yeah, and I mean that's so great that you have that positive support system because that can be the hugest difference in the world. I mean, when I started working out, it was mainly just myself, and it took a while. And then when I finally got friends that were also into working out too, that support is just life and death for a lot of competitors too, just between them being able to succeed and just not being able to reach their goals. But now, I mean, as you can tell, like I said before, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I mean, I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get farmer's tan or I just get burnt to an absolute crisp. I mean,
Oh.
the sun reflects off of me, not like a sexy vampire thing like Twilight. It's more of like I could have an 8 pack, and it's like when they open up the Ark and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and everyone's face melts. I mean, it's not a pretty sight just because like it's just blinding. But what is that experience like putting that tan on? Because we hear so many people talk about, like you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get all tanned up?
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about my first time I got tan.
Ooh, yep,
Uh, there's some positives and some negatives. I didn't know
yep.
how cold it was gonna be. So, because they have these fans, so like if you get tanned by the company or a company there, they'll have the fans there on you, so you can quick dry. But they did two coats on me, one the day before and then one that morning of, and they were dark coats. My family was like, "I don't know who you are." And I'm already, a little dark here. But I honestly, I loved it. I thought, just like you're saying, everything pops, and that's the purpose of it. So I will say, side note, please do not go on stage, no matter what shade you are. Please get tanned. It is it's good for your overall package for the judges to see. And you're right. The muscles that you didn't see when you're, just your regular shape, they pop under those lights. So I really love that. And you get those stage shots back. If you do side by side, you do one without tan and one with, yeah, you would never go back to that side.
Well, and I always say we had one guest who was, from Mexico, and she thought that, she already had the skin tone to not put a tan on when she went on stage. And I told her, I said, hey, you may even look like that, but the tan still just makes everything look even better. Now, I mean, granted, for the people that have, my sort of shade of skin, I always say, first of all, if you look good in that shade, you know that you're going to look great with that tan on because you know that you're on point. Like you see some of these people who they just look so swole without even the tan, you're like, okay, you're just going to look even better. But yeah,
Right.
no matter, like you said, no matter what complexion, you got to put that tan on because it just adds so much more to it. But I also like the negative things, like you're saying. One of the biggest negatives I always hear is, you got to be a statue. Basically, you can't sit on anything. You can't, you got to make sure when you sleep, you might bring like extra bed sheets to, the hotel. But yeah, there's so many things that aren't really talked about that I love to, talk about because most people don't realize that that just adds even more to the amount of dedication that goes into it. But now, one of my favorite questions to ask, because if you were to poll the general public, not too many people would guess this, but for so many of the competitors that I have on, the hardest thing for them is posing. It's harder than their working out. It's harder than their nutrition. I mean, I always like to compare it to you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always something that is ever evolving. Was that a struggle for you, the posing aspect? Because, I always just say so many people, they never get that the posing thing is just so huge. And the fact that, I mean, being in the bikini division, you have to wear those heels too. To add on to that question, were the heels really a big struggle for you, and how did that change your overall posing? And just going back to the original question, so was posing, a struggle for you at all?
Okay, so I wouldn't. It probably was a struggle in the beginning. I'm saying in my head, I didn't think it was, but looking at pictures now from then and now, I go, oh yeah, no, I didn't know what I was doing. But the heels were totally fine because I was already into pageants when I was younger. I was already in heels for
Mhm.
forever. The gym shoes were the life changing piece for me. So the heels were fine. It did come to understanding, which leg to use, which foot needs to pop, which arm goes where. I can remember my first show. I had someone who was in the crowd. She was a competitor herself, and in between the prejudging and the finals, I was putting my hand covering like the side I shouldn't I should have been back here. I'm like this and she goes, don't cover your obliques, like uncover them. So the only thing I did instead of switching, I just kept pushing it back. I was like, what the heck was that? But over time, just researching myself, other posers, looking at pros, to see, okay, what do I like, what do I not like for my own body, and because that's the biggest thing when you are trying to figure out what routine you're going to do on stage and what for I would say for bikini because I know we kind of get more freedom than a lot of bodybuilders and everything. It's like really straightforward for them. But for bikini, it's like okay, I can do so much, but let me figure out is the left side good? Is the right side good? For my pro, well, not for my pro, but for my nationals, even in pro right now, for nationals, I know some girls feel like, oh my gosh, I have to, do 360 and show all sides. I showed one side and got my pro card,
Yep.
and it was because, okay, that's my strong side. Okay, in certain positions, these are my strong suits that show the lines that I need to show for the judges to see. And it's a process, and you do want to practice that as from day one if you can. Just like you're in the gym from day one, you definitely want to build the muscle memory and stretch, as much as possible so that on stage it is second nature. So yeah, so over time, that's one thing that I've gotten better with, and now I'm coaching other girls in that area, so they can find what's comfortable for them because that total package of being confident and knowing exactly where to set your body on stage sets you apart because you can have two girls that have or two guys whatever that have that same physique, but if one comes out and shows that just star power with and that confidence on stage, that's the one that's going to shine as opposed to the other competitor.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I gotta say my biggest mistake I've ever made in this podcast is I had a girl on from the South. She's from Arkansas, and I asked her if she had any trouble with those high heels, and then she went on a tangent where I was like, okay, I'd never ask a girl from the South if she's ever had any experience with high heels because they're basically born in high heels. So I was like, so now every time I gotta make sure if a girl's from like Michigan or whatever, then I ask the high heels. But now if I have a girl from the South, I'm like, okay, don't ask about the high heels. They know how to wear those high heels.
Yes.
So yeah, 100%. But what is your favorite pose to do, and what is your least favorite pose to do?
Ooh. I don't know if I have a least favorite pose. Oh gosh, I love all my poses. I guess okay, so I would say if out of the options of poses, there's a thing called like the A stance. Most call it that, where you're front pose and you're still. I don't even know how to explain it. Obviously, I kind of started that way because I saw a lot of girls back then with that front side pose thing. It just doesn't work for me. So I would say that's my least favorite pose. Um, and yeah, all the other ones I do right now, I love, especially the glute shot,
Well, yeah,
that's
and that's awesome because a lot of people do say like the back shot is one of the ones that they don't like the most. But I always say that one, it's like, okay, that's the one pose where you can sort of let your gut out a little bit. You can kind of you don't have to be smiling constantly. Like that's one of the biggest things too is you got to make everything look natural and basically you're just trying not to grind your teeth to basically rubber or just basically dirt because I
right.
mean everything's got yeah, especially like the physique compares that we have on tour, which is yeah. But like you said, bikini, yeah, you have so a little bit more leeway to do things. Just the posing aspect in general is just so hard. But being a posing coach, when a new client comes to you, what would you say for women overall for the bikini division is the hardest pose to teach?
Ooh. Oh, it would be I kind of say pose two. It's like a side glute. So
Mhm.
there's pose three. There's like a side glute transition that you'll do getting into that back pose, that full back pose.
Oh,
So
yep.
there's two options they can do, and I try and see which one works best for them. Um, and that seems to be the one. If everybody can kind of picture that, it's kind of like just showing that one side glute, and then it looks like a upside down heart. Getting the feet right is the biggest thing, and so that would be the hardest one to try and get them to transition to.
And I always say just like with posing, it's just like with working out. I mean, it's all about muscle memory. You got to do it so many times that you basically can do it in your sleep. But yeah,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people just think that I can just walk on stage. I can just pull it off. It's like nope. We've had so many people where they talk about like for my first show, I waited until like 2 or 3 weeks before my show to start posing or whatever. And it's like, well, good luck with that. And then we've heard stories about how that turns out. So yeah, everyone and
Yeah.
posing coaches get a posing coach as well. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that for all the competitors out there that are listening to this that I can give you guys and girls. I mean, get a
Yeah.
posing coach. It is so important. But now, probably the most common question that I ask everyone, because I have up and coming bands, I have professors, I have competitors on. For my bands, I always like to ask, what is that like going on stage, performing live in front of hundreds of thousands of people? And I
Yeah.
always like that also applies to my competitors. What is that feeling like for you when you get to step on stage, show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on a very strict prep for?
Yay! No, I love it. I really love it. I guess at heart, or maybe there's a little person inside of me who always loves that attention, or always have loved that attention. I guess that's why I went into the whole pageant field. Uh, but yeah, it's like goodness. It's I can't even explain it. I mean, as you can see, it's like I'm lost for words. It's like you've done the work. However long your prep or however short your prep was, you've done the work. As long as you, for me, I know I work hard every single day to make sure I get the physique that I want. And when you know you're going into a show with the physique that you want, it's just like I'm here. I'm here and I'm ready. So especially this last show, like the level of excitement was like through the roof, and that's always the case.
And that is so awesome. And I always love to tell people just for anything in your life, just find that. Find what makes you feel like that. Find what makes you happy. I mean, we're on here for such a short amount of time that just find what
Yes.
makes you happy and just stick with it. And now we go to one of my fun questions. So what is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was doing a video for my girls earlier this week about that. Okay, and some of them are like in this room. You can't see them, but let's see. Post show, I either do a burger and sweet potato fries, or a deep dish pizza and a glazed donut. I know. I'm very random. But yes, that's always been the case. Uh, and if I don't do one, I'll probably do the other one the next day. I kind of give myself until like half of Monday before I start going back into my structured plan. But I'll do that, and then I'll also like eat up all the pump. What is it? The pump food that I have for the
Yep.
back. It's usually like Twix and
Mhm.
Twizzlers and stuff like that. I'll bring enough for me. It's not a lot, or Pop Tarts or something like that. So if I have some left over after the show, throughout the day I'll pop those, and in the morning after my show, pancakes always. Flavored pancakes have to come in this tummy. So,
What's your favorite flavor for pancakes?
ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, IHOP does it really well. And even for my refeeds, I always go there.
Blueberry and chocolate got to be mine. Yeah.
So I like, let's see, I do like the cinnamon swirl
Mhm.
cupcake. And I think now, because at first it wasn't a top of mine, but the New York cheesecake.
Oof.
I just,
You're making me drool right now. Ugh.
I'm making myself
Yeah.
drool right now. It's something I can't have. But
Yeah.
yes, those are, gosh, I can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
And as someone who has never been on that prep and never really went down to that extreme, what is that feeling like for you when you finally get to taste that after, going months upon months of never having, anything that sweet? Is that just taste like the best thing in the world?
Yes and no. So last what was it? It was just 2 weeks ago for the Vegas show. There was this place called Black Tap, and we saw this Sunday that looked so amazing. Not gonna say it wasn't amazing, but after not having all of that sugar, we couldn't even finish it all. I thought we would be able to. There was whipped cream all up top, and then the milkshake was in the bottom, and they had like this ice cream cookie on the side. So I got to eat half the ice cream cookie, and I started eating the cream on the side. Ate like I guess you could say most of the whipped cream. And when I got to the milkshake, I was just like, okay, you can take this back. I'm good. Which was sad, of course, when you think about it and think back to it, but it's kind of a catch-22 because your body hasn't been used to all of the sugar, so it can be an overload, especially just, throwing that into your body. And that was the same for the show the show that I had, what was it? A couple months before that. I bought some donuts and thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna chow down on these donuts." I had a couple and I was like, okay, the rest of these, I'm just gonna give them away. So it's a bit sad, but then it's a good thing too because you realize, okay, this is something a little foreign that's going into my body, and it's not always the best option. So I'm glad, my taste buds aren't like stuff
Mhm.
yourself. So yeah, yeah,
I I mean, I always said if I ever competed, I would just rent a Five Guys that night and just say, "Okay, here's like $1,000. Give me as much as possible." And either three things are gonna happen: I'm gonna explode, or I'm gonna start throwing up, or I'm just gonna just pass out. But either way, I'm getting my money's worth. So yeah, that
you're
would be one thing that I would do. But now, one of the most important questions or probably the most important question that I love to ask on here because it is not talked about at all or enough, I think, on Instagram or social media at all, is that a lot of people, when they look at these competitors, they don't realize that that body that you guys present on stage is not sustainable. You are not going to be able to look that way 365 days out of the year. I mean, I always say you've sort of manipulated your body through all of the hard work and all of the exercise into a look that is not sustainable. I mean, I've had so many of my friends come up to me and say, like, Ryan, I really enjoy watching the podcast. I like it when you have some of these bodybuilders on. And even they are surprised. They're like, I thought that these people could look like that, year round because they just work their butt off so long for that. But so many people don't realize, I mean, for guys and girls, you are not going to be able to look that way 365 days out of the year. Was that a struggle for you at first, sort of realizing that, like all these months upon months of hard work and I am not going to be able to keep that weight? And if it was a struggle, I mean, how has that sort of changed over time? Has it gotten easier for you to sort of mentally prepare yourself for that?
Yes, I will say that it was a bit of a shock that first time around, just a little bit because I had half my mindset thinking, um, okay, what changed? And I will say I didn't have the wisdom of someone talking to me about a reverse diet. That's very important. Um, so because 2 days later we went to the buffet, and
Mhm.
that was that. Uh, but I will say the other half of me was wanting to grow. So eating, I was just like, okay, yeah. And when my body was, getting bigger, it was like, okay, that's fine. It was after I had gained the weight and gained a little bit too much and started having mass that looked like figure as opposed to bikini, that's when my eyes opened and I was like, what the heck did I do wrong? What the heck is going on? And getting, like I said, getting the wisdom and understanding, okay, I kind of did that process wrong. There is a way to do it. Um Now, like you're saying, my mindset is like, okay, reverse diet is the biggest thing, but also know there is weight that's going to be gained. I mean, that week of peak week, water is, being manipulated, food is being manipulated, everything. So it's one day, that one specific time, and maybe even the day before and the day after, where you look, just amazing and on point. But you're right, it's not sustainable. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you my numbers, but it's like
Yeah.
the calories that, I'm at right before a show or the week of a show, I would never,
Mhm.
live off of that. Metabolism would, just kind of go
Yep.
down. And it's like, no, you have to make sure that you do a proper reverse diet after a show. And don't be scared of that weight gain. It's going to happen. There's a stage weight, there's a normal weight, normal healthy weight to be at. And over here, healthy weight is where you want to be at until you get to, that month out stage and you're cutting.
Thank you so much for saying that because there's so many people that just don't understand that. That's one of the reasons I love to ask that question. And I just love to educate people on that. But two of my favorite questions I love to ask before we get to our questionnaire at the end part here. But now my two favorite questions that I love to ask before that. So for my first one, I mean, when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger, I mean, there's so many positive things that happen with that. But there was one negative thing. You're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, like I said, I'm still home with my parents for the next couple of months before I move out. And every time they come in with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and then carry in, all of the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you where, I mean, I know that you're a bikini competitor, but people just still see that you work out and they see that you're in really good shape and they just assume that you can do favors like that for them?
Maybe not the favors, but they feel as though, oh my gosh, you can beat me up. Oh my gosh, you can. And I play around and I just go, it's just for show.
Hmm.
I just want to let you know.
Yep.
I mean, but I have strength, but aesthetics is another piece of it. So, and I will say, that's another goal for me to work on the strengthening part of it. But not only me, trust me, there are a lot of people where it's and I don't want to, I guess you could say, make it seem like a negative thing, but it's more so aesthetics than it is
Hmm.
like, oh, I see she has muscles, so she's like the strongest thing in
But
the world.
yeah,
It's like
believe
I
me,
shaped my body.
yeah, believe me, we've had powerlifters on the podcast, and those are the people that don't look like they're that strong most of the time. But then you realize, they're benching like 350 pounds, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're really
Right,
strong. So yeah, that's
right. So there you go.
that's what
So
I always tell
understand.
people. It's like there's a huge difference between being a bodybuilder and being a powerlifter. Now, the bodybuilders are still very, very strong, but powerlifters are, 99% of the time. Now, to grant, there are some bodybuilders that can put up powerlifting numbers, but they're not as much. But yeah,
Yes,
I always say though, for me, it's a double edged sword because being 6'3", I mean, I could have zero muscle at all, and people would take one look at me and say, tall guy, come help out. So yeah, I mean, it got to the point where even like last summer, all my friends would text me and just be like, hey, I'm moving. Can you help me move my furniture? And I'm being the nice guy that I am. I do help him, but yeah, it took a little bit to adjust that, and also being like asked to arm wrestle in bars whenever I go in there and just stuff like that all the time. Where I'm just like, where even I tell him I was like, first of all, if you want to measure strength, arm wrestling is one of the worst ways to do it. I was like, let's go to a gym and I can like military press off with you or something like that. Like
there you go.
do something where like we actually measure how strong. But yeah, so yeah, just dealing with that too. It really just took a lot to adjust to. But now I'm fine with it. But my favorite question out of all the questions that I'll ask you, I mean, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there who's looking into it. But when it comes to clothes for fit women, I always like to say your clothing options can be limited, especially when you're going into prep and when you're going out of prep. I mean, you basically have to have two different wardrobes. What has that been like for you? Because I mean, there's so many women that we have on here that like they struggle with that. And what have been some ways that you found that you can sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited, just going from those changes from your prep to just going up to gaining weight?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will say this. Because the one thing that came to my mind was I have I guess you could say not a stage weight, but I have a weight that I like to stay at because I do constantly want to be somewhat in the area if if I want to do a
Mhm.
show. So usually about 10 pounds, I make sure I stay within 10 pounds of my stage weight. So with that being the case, I don't struggle too much with, sizing of, the clothes that I have. I have prepped over the past year and I have my two sizes. It might be a twos and the fours.
Mhm.
So I figured that out. But I'm normally in gym clothes and
Yep.
like my Lululemon. So
That's
it doesn't matter what weight I'm
Mhm.
at.
That is one of the benefits of being a personal trainer. We have that answer on all the time. Is that yeah, your I mean your average day clothes are also your work clothes. So I mean that works both ways. But now we go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire. We're going to ask our guests, but a dozen or so health and fitness related questions, sort of a getting to know you, and we're going to see how our answers stack up to all the other answers that we've had. So for our
Oh god.
first question, what is your
Okay.
go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh gosh, go to workout song. Okay, it's very random. I don't know who would know it. Um, Oh gosh, and now I don't feel like I know it because it's been a little bit.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I guess you can say recently, I have not. This is very shocking for myself, but recently I have not been listening to any music while I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
I just look at my plan and just go for it and just focus on that. But there is this song by Corinne. I can't think of her last name, but I know it's just Corinne. It's a Christian artist, and she, gosh, I can't even think of the name. Unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Yep.
Yes,
I've heard
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. Corinne Hawthorne. That's her name.
That's what. Yeah, I
So
was
yeah,
trying to think of her last name. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes. So I would have that one on, especially going through this last prep. I would have it on repeat. That was it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's always great to have a great song that you love to listen to. But now for our second question, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, see, okay, so there's two, and that's
That's
funny.
fine. You can do two. Yeah.
Um, The Rock would be
Yep.
one. And am I saying his name right? Is it Matt Damon?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what the? Because I saw his. No, 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 not Matt Damon. No, Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg.
There we
Yep.
go. Yes, yes. I just. Oh gosh, when they posted his just schedule for the day,
Mhm.
that kind of changed some of the things that I do too.
He's a freak. Let's just be honest. He's getting up at like 3 a.m. or whatever, like just
Yes,
to go and work out. And it's like, dude. And he's like going to bed at like 7. I was like, come on, dude. It's like you gotta live a little bit of a life every once in a while. So
but that would gosh,
yeah.
if I was having an off day, I am sure he would be the one to kick my butt in the
I
high
mean, the
gear.
guy goes golfing at like 7 a.m. every day, and by then he's already got his workout and he's already like done everything else. And
Yes.
it's like, dude, you're a freak. It's like, yeah.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I saw
Yes.
that workout plan too, and I was like, wow, that is awesome. But I gotta say, you're gonna be, I think, like our 110th health and fitness guest when this gets posted. And Dwayne the Rock Johnson has been the answer like 90% of the time. So yeah, we get that. Believe me, I understand. Like we have all these women too, and it's like we've had like 5 or 6 women answer. So yeah, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, I completely
Yeah.
understand that. I mean, he would be definitely a one for me too. But Mark Wahlberg, I do have to warn you though. In real life, he's only like 5'5". So
Oh,
when you meet him, yeah,
that's fine. I'm five
yeah.
one.
Oh, yep, yep. I was gonna guess because some people who are like a little bit taller on the show, I was like, okay, just to let you know when you meet them, some of these celebrities and like we'll hear like a Tom Cruise too. I was like, okay, yeah, he's also very very short, but yeah. So yeah, that's like the one thing for me where it's like he looks jacked, but if you were to stand him next to me, it would be a little bit different. Where because I'd be like a full like
Right.
10 inches taller than him. Where I'd be like, okay, what now? Whereas Dwayne the Rock Johnson is still like 2 inches taller than me, and he's plus 50 pounds of me. So yeah, that's a little
Different.
that's a
Yeah.
completely different story. But now all a similar question. So now out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, if I could train oh gosh. I don't know. That's a hard one. Train a celebrity. Okay, because I have been binge watched these shows, I probably would be interested in training some of the Kardashians
Yes.
just to truly see like where their motivation is. I mean,
Mhm.
I see clips, of their various trainers.
Workouts.
Yes, and I'm like, are you really getting a sweat?
Is it not
Brown
just the
keep going.
injections that you're getting and all the other stuff and all these fat burners that you're just basically
Right,
using all the
right.
time? Yeah.
I'm like, so let's see if I take either one of my
Mhm.
workouts. Would you complete it?
That would be one of the times that I mean, I watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I'm not gonna lie, when I was like, because the show came out when I was like 13, so I watched a
Yeah.
couple episodes. But yeah, that would be the only time that I would watch another episode is if we got like an actual trainer who like actually knows what they're doing and actually put them through a real workout and see them like cry and get all upset. Because
Yes.
I always say my biggest pet peeve is these celebrities that post these videos where like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role, and they're throwing like 2-pound dumbbells, and then next thing you know, like four weeks later, they're like super lean down tone. It's like, first of all, you're giving a negative image where people think that that's what they can do then to get that look. Well, let's be honest, you basically starve yourself. You had these personal trainers and these personal
Yeah.
chefs that cooked everything for you, and they know like exactly what to eat at the right amount of time. You didn't have to do anything. So yeah, that's basically my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would gotta say, yeah, the Kardashians are our second most popular answer. Our most popular answer is Kevin Hart. But I always say, if you're gonna do a comedian, the only bad thing is that you're not gonna be able to get a workout in because they're gonna be too funny. You're gonna get the
Oh,
greatest
right.
ab workout of all time, but you're not gonna be able to get a real workout. So yeah,
That's
I
true.
couldn't say that more. But now, out of all of your followers that you have on Instagram, what would you say would be one surprising thing that they would find out about you if they met you in person?
Uh, oh, see, no, that wouldn't be it. I was about to say, um, I said it, I was gonna say singing,
Mhm,
but I know I posted one video of me singing in a band.
mhm.
So that might not be it. Let's see. One thing that oh oh gosh, I guess I'm getting like really, really, really personal. Um, let's see. That these lovely, lovely add-ins
Mhm.
are not mine.
Oh.
And mine is that short.
Ooh.
So yes, my hair, yeah, my hair would probably be the shocking one of all.
Hey,
So
I appreciate that you were actually willing to say that too, because I was gonna say, like, I was gonna give you the easy out, because a lot of people say, like, I think your height would be another thing too, because so many people, they meet these people in person and then they're like,
mhm,
oh, you're a little bit shorter than because some of these people who take these photos, like especially the women, they look like they're like 5'6" or 5'8", and then you meet them
right.
in person, you're like, oh, really, or whatever. So that's what I always say too, where like some of these guys talk about like, oh, I might be intimidated by these women that have muscles. And like, well, I'm not, because first of all, if I were to walk up to them, I'm usually a foot taller than most of them, so it's like I could like pet them on the head. So I'm basically like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's not really that intimidating. So it's another, yeah. So that's definitely one thing that we get a lot. But yeah, that's awesome. And
yes.
now, I mean, another favorite question of mine is, if you had the all knowing power, if someone just went up to you and said, like, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be the one thing that you would want to see changed?
You probably heard this one.
Mhm.
I don't know, but I'm an all natural competitor.
Yep.
That would be the very first thing. And
Hmm.
honestly, the only thing that I see right now, oh well, I mean politics might be another thing.
Yeah, but
But
yep.
but yes, when it comes to drugs of any nature, that enhance
Hmm.
instead of putting the work in, I would say I would want that gone like that.
I'm gonna be completely honest, everyone. About 80% of the bodybuilder guests that I have had on are on something. Like I never bring it up. I never mention it during the podcast because that's their own thing. But yeah, let's be honest. And I can tell just from her and just from talking to her that she's not. I mean, she's one of those people that you can tell that.
Right.
Not to saying that you don't have the size, but I'm just saying like you can tell the difference between people. And there are a lot of other factors. I mean, the voice is another thing that I don't like to bring up that you can hear too when you're talking to some of these people. There's so
Yeah.
many different indicators, but yeah, that is one thing that. Yeah, I can,
I would.
and
Yeah.
I would change that as well as the politics too. But yeah, the drugs too. I just basically make it where you just have a confederation where everyone knows that they're on stuff, and it would just be accepted, and then just have, like they kind of have two already, where it's just the natural stuff where it's kind of like that.
Right.
But then that kind of makes it unfair too, because then if you're like the most muscular natural person, it's going to be very hard to win, the drug competition. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it mature muscle
Hmm. Hmm.
takes time.
Yep.
So, you're going to work so hard to gain the muscle that you do have at that point in time.
Hmm.
But that other person, that a month ago, 3 weeks ago, didn't look anywhere near you, you know, now looks way better than you do
All of a sudden,
on
they've got
stage.
veins coming
And
out of their veins.
thank you. And now they're on stage and they win the trophy. And it was just, a month,
It's like, hey,
3 weeks,
how did you
whatever
get
it's
that
not.
washboard 8 pack and those bulging biceps in like 3 weeks? Huh? I kind of
Right.
wonder. That kind of makes you wonder.
Right.
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah. So it's that's the biggest thing I would say. And it's not just for me as an athlete and feeling it's unfair
Mhm.
going against someone else, but I also think about their lifespan,
Yep.
and if that was taken out and you could not do that, it's just I see it as a positive thing just for their life and their health in
Hmm.
general. you wouldn't be tempted to take it.
And doing my research when I started having on, like female bodybuilders and male bodybuilders, looking at some of these, especially the females, because the drugs do impact them a lot more than the men do when it comes to their changes. But just seeing some of them when they're in like their 50s and 60s and what they look like,
Mm,
I just want to show that photo to a lot of ladies that might be thinking about that and saying like, this is what you're gonna end up looking like if you do like what
yeah,
they do. And some of them have taken such extreme amounts of drugs that, I mean, they just, I don't even want to get into the side effects. That's a whole podcast in and of itself that I could do. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just, yeah. So without saying that, yeah, just everyone, if you want to see what that's like, look it up yourself and just see what some of them look like later on in life, and the guys too. And it is not a pretty sight to see. So now going on to a more lighter topic here in the questionnaire. So now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
Good Girls.
Good Girls. Ooh,
Yes.
mhm,
Okay, so short synopsis
mhm,
of this. I didn't know. I guess it was on Netflix,
mhm,
and I guess they're coming back for their second season. But they were all like strapped for cash, and they made they made a uh joke
mhm.
to rob the grocery store
Oh, yep.
that one of them work at. Yeah, and then they ended up doing it, and then it just kind of spiraled,
Yeah.
out of control from there. So yeah, so I'm ready for season two.
That sounds interesting. I should definitely check that. The last one that I binge watched was You, because everyone on my show was just talking, raving about it. And
Yes,
yeah, have you seen that yet?
I started that.
Yeah,
I will say I started it, but then I was like, I haven't finished Good Girls.
yeah.
So now, okay,
Get
I'm
back
going
to
back.
You. I was gonna say you are going to. I mean, it is. I'm not gonna give away anything, but yeah, you are going to. Yeah, it's it's a very, very good show. I highly recommend it. But now, what's your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, my favorite? Gosh, you know what? I have to be honest. I don't know if I have a favorite. I don't know if I have a favorite. Over time,
Mhm,
as life has gotten busier, and again, I might sound like the boring one right now, but just structuring my life a different way. TV watching, that's why I did the binge watching. It would happen on the
mhm,
treadmill most times, but TV watching, I don't get,
mhm.
unfortunately, too much of it nowadays.
That's the reason why I think in some of the future episodes of this podcast, where I'm gonna take away those questions, because a lot of these bodybuilders too, they're like, I don't have time to, especially when we have like moms that come on too, where it's like, okay, yeah, that's just being able to find time to work out. So yeah, but for me, I mean, I'm the most basic person. Friends in the Office, basically a tie for me. Where anytime they come on, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll watch it. But now, this, I mean, everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Ooh, okay, you're right. Everyone has one. Grease is mine.
Yes.
Only the first one.
Okay, yeah, yeah. The second one is all right, but yeah, the first one, yeah, is yeah, 100.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. So my mom was 18 when that movie came, or no, she was 14 actually when it came out. That's the one movie where she always still talks about. She saw that in the theaters like 14 times when it came out. Like and
Oh,
this was back in the day when you could still like get away with sneaking into movies a lot easier, where you could just buy one ticket and then see the movie like 3 times in a day, and they wouldn't even check. So she says her and her friends would just do that on the weekends, where they'd go and they'd watch it like 2 times in a row, like back to back, and then they just kept doing it. But yeah, Grease is a
yeah.
guilt. I mean, if that would be definitely one of my top 5 guilty pleasure movies, because yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I sometimes, yeah, it's a great. But now I always gotta say though, with Grease, that is one of those movies when you rewatch it when you're older, some of the jokes that they make and some of the things,
Yes.
you are like, oh my god, I can't believe as a kid that I was singing along to some of these songs and I didn't know what they were talking about. Like, anyone who doesn't know about that, go and re-listen to the song Grease Lightning and listen to all of
Thank
the
you.
lyrics. Yeah, listen to
Thank
all of
you.
the lyrics and you will be like, what did he
Oh
just say
my
that?
gosh.
Like, I can't
Right.
believe they got away with saying that in like a PG movie back in the set. But yeah, it is. Yeah, and some of the inside jokes. Yeah, I mean, watching that now, that is such a dirty movie that people don't realize how
Yes.
dirty it really is when they get into watching it. Which makes me love it even more. So yeah, everyone go and watch Grease. But for me, my guilty pleasure movie, I mean, hands down, Princess Bride. That
Oh, oh
that
gosh.
that
Yes.
movie comes on. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. All, like I always say to all my guy friends, I'll never admit it in person. You can hear it if you listen to the podcast. But Princess Bride. I mean, that I'll give an example. I was writing my thesis paper in college, and that movie came on, and I stopped what I was doing and just started watching it. If that doesn't show dedication, I don't know what is. Stopping your thesis paper. But yeah, I can quote most of that movie. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a guilty pleasure. That's one of those movies where it comes on, you drop whatever you're doing, and you watch it.
See, so yeah, okay, so just to make sure, the Disney one, right? The Disney one with
Carrie
what's her
Ells
name?
and Robin Wright.
Oh, wait, no. Okay, so
The one with
you're thinking
Andre
of
the
the
Giant.
older
Yeah,
version.
the older giant. Yeah, the one from the
Oh,
'80s. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, see, now I'm gonna have to watch that one too.
Oh, you
Okay.
haven't seen that, first of all?
I have not seen that.
Okay,
Not that one.
You need to see that because there are so many quotes from that movie that I can guarantee you hear in everyday life that you're like, I wonder where that comes from. Where once you watch that movie, you're gonna be like, oh, that's where that quote comes from. Like there are at least probably half a dozen that you hear almost every day from people that you're like, why are people saying that? Where it comes from that? Like that's one of the most quotable movies of all. Yeah, so I highly, if there's one thing that I could
Okay.
get out of this podcast, I recommend you watch Princess Bride. But now the final two questions of my
Okay.
questionnaire: what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Favorite fashion trend. Gosh, I tend to not follow them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Me
that's it.
neither. But yeah. So yeah, I'll leave that as, undecided because yeah, I get that. But like for me, being up in Minnesota, especially during the winters, I mean Michigan winters can get really, really cold, but Minnesota
Yeah.
it's just a tick above where I mean I gotta be rocking flannel almost 24/7 when I go
Oh,
outside just because it keeps you so warm. But my least favorite, I always say my dad ruined this in the late 90s, fanny packs. Now don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
I'll go with you.
I have to put an asterisk to that because women can rock a fanny pack. So I always include that. But guys trying to rock fanny packs, I was like, no, because I know they're making a small comeback. So I say, if I could do anything from this podcast,
No,
is if I can stop the spread of fanny packs, I will do
oh,
my due diligence in order to make
please,
that to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
please, because I will agree with you on
Hmm.
that. And now I can just picture my dad in the hammer pants
Hmm.
and the fanny pack.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
like at
Or the
at one of
Zumbas
the.
too.
Say it
The
again.
Zumbas too.
Wait.
Those Zumba pants.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes.
He had these purple
Oh
ones. Oh my gosh. And we're like he'll wear those and then the
yes.
fanny pack at like a Cedar
Uh
Point
huh.
or something like that. Oh gosh, no.
Yep.
Let's not go there
Like
again.
yeah, always
Mm-mm.
looking at some of the things that my dad had like one pair of Zumas that he'd wear just for fun because he didn't like it as like a fashion trend. He just did it just for laughs. But yeah, that is definitely one thing that I would change as well. But now our last question of the questionnaire: if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Ooh. Don't waste time.
Hmm.
Um, don't take things well, there's I guess you can say more than one, but don't waste time. Don't take things too seriously.
Hmm.
Um, and just stay focused.
Hmm.
Don't let others because short little synopsis or story back in the day I was bullied as a young girl, so I let what other people, even growing up and even through college, I let what others thought of me, or what I thought they thought of me, um change how I would be,
Hmm.
and how I thought of myself.
Hmm.
So know myself, be confident in who I am, uh, and yeah, and don't let the outside chatter. Just adjust that.
I couldn't agree more. And for me, it would be, like you're never gonna be able to please everyone. So don't try to be such a huge people pleaser for everyone because not everyone's gonna
Yeah.
get your vibe, and you're just gonna waste a lot of time and a lot of effort. So yeah, that would be definitely my number one piece of advice. So the final two questions that I love to ask everyone before we wrap things up here. So if we were to talk to you a year from now, where would you like to be at when it comes to, I mean, both your career as a personal trainer, I mean, your bodybuilding career, and just your overall life? Where would you like to be if we chatted a year from today?
Let's see. A year from the day today, top 10. I know I should go all the way and say winner of the Olympia this year, but at least top 10.
Mhm.
Um, Gosh, for I would say, I mean, I'm halfway there, but about 50 clients consistently.
Mhm. That's
Um,
awesome.
whether it be posing or lifestyle or competition clients, and gosh, I guess you could say just maybe work establishing another goal, because right now I feel like the goals that I had on my list, they're kind of getting checked off and
Mhm.
I'm kind of at the end of it. So hopefully by this time next year I'll have some new ones that I'm working on.
And we wish you nothing but the best. And obviously adding some hardware. We see all the trophies behind you. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like maybe build that extra shelf to keep because it looks like you're about to fall off. I mean, you got so many of them right there. I always say one of the funniest things that's ever happened on a podcast is we had a guy bodybuilder who had a similar thing like you, where he had a trophy case in the back that had all of his trophies. He also had a pretty mischievous cat, so the cat jumped up on the shelf and started knocking down all the trophies when we
Oh
were
no.
talking. And I told him, I said, I know you're gonna hate me for this, but that's staying in because that's the funniest thing that's ever happened on this podcast. He's like, oh no, no worries. So yeah, I mean that is one of my favorite things that's ever happened. But now, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh well, always,
Yeah.
always Boss Bodies team,
I'll leave a
Boss
link to
Bodies.
all of the Boss Body stuff too. I highly recommend everyone go and check out their apparel and everything that has to do with them.
Yes, yes. We are. Uh, well, we have 2 sides, but Teen Boss Bodies for the females, we're just a collection of sisters. That's what I whenever I post, I usually put that in there, hashtag, women empowerment. We love to connect with either new competitors, like I said, lifestyle clients, and we're here to make this a lifestyle for you, not just like you say something you do for 3 months. We get you on stage or something, and then you're off to, you're just a client. You're not a name. You're just a number. No, it's a family, and that's why, honestly, because again, I started as a competitor,
Mhm.
and before I got on the team, just seeing what girls were posting about the team and the coaches and how everyone just encourages each other. It's incredible. So I mean, if you are looking for a team or looking for a coach, we are always here. We are ready to take you in and just love on you,
Again,
guide you.
everyone, I mean, just from talking about it, I can tell that they really are there to help you out, and they're really just an awesome group of people. So I highly recommend. I'll leave a link to that. I'll also leave a link to Bee's, all of her Instagram, all of her other stuff. Everyone, go and give her a follow. And I always say, like, just looking at some of her photos, you're going to be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating all those Twinkies all the time. Adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle. And I always love to ask this question at the very end: if someone were, just walk up to you on the street and say, like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. I want to get into better shape." What would be the best piece of advice that you would give them just right then and there, just so that they'd be able to start and, get that change that they need?
Honestly, I think I said it earlier. Let's start one day at a time.
Mhm.
It may seem overwhelming, of course, with all the information that somebody can throw at you. But let's take it one day at a time. A habit cannot be created unless we just, like I said, let's start with day one, day two. You just keep piling on from there. And by the time you look up and you know it, has become a lifestyle and you have changed yourself for the better.
I couldn't agree more with that, and I think that's nothing better to send this off with. So again, you guys, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I mean, it was so great talking to you.
Aw,
I mean, I enjoyed hearing your story and everything like that. And like I say, I love having guests come on, just sharing their own personal stories. I mean, it was a pleasure having you on, and we wish you nothing but the best. I mean, I'd love to have you on again later, and maybe sometime next year where we can
of
definitely catch
course.
up and see what you've been up to. But again, you guys, all the link to all of our stuff down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.